Hello again, I'm Nicholas Markey of Beach Barbell. I'm a physical therapist by day and online fitness coach by night. Today I want to do a quick video on kind of what are the most important principles with making progress in your training. Okay, so one of the key principles, what's called the overload principle, and that's basically that the stimulus or the challenge that you're giving yourself is getting slightly greater over time, right? That might not just be in days, it could be weeks, months, years, but over time, you're slowly having increased challenge. Because we know with training, like when you train, you're breaking things down a little bit, and then your body has to rebuild, and when it rebuilds, it's rebuilding slightly higher. So to keep rise with that, you have to constantly be up in the ante a little bit. And then sometimes things will kind of get stale or plateau, or your body will kind of accommodate, get adjusted to something, and maybe you're finding it having a hard time, actually continuing to make progress in some fashion, whether that's reps, sets, weight, whatever. And then that's when you might switch it up, vary up. Provide a new stimulus, whether that's just a totally new exercise or whether that's a variation on the exercise, so it's still kind of similar but different. Lots of different ways you could play around with that. Could even just be, if say that you've been working kind of lower end of the hypertrophy typical range, so maybe let's say if you're doing like 5 to 8, maybe you kind of work the other end. Maybe you work towards like 15 to 25, or slightly higher range of like 10 to 15 or whatever, 8 to 15. So there's different ways to vary in that sense, so you can continue providing a gradually increasing challenge, overloading over time. Another important principle would be that you're training hard. Kind of makes sense, right? Training hard in the sense that if we're thinking about weight training, we talked about kind of effort levels. So whether that's like RPE or RAR, so rating perceived exertion, or reps in reserve, so how many reps you have left in the tank. I kind of prefer RAR just because I think it's somewhat easier to conceptualize for most people. So what I would say, what the research seems to show is if you're kind of in a 1 to 4-ish, maybe even 0 to 4-ish reps in reserve. So 4 reps in reserve would be like you kind of feel like you have 4 reps left. Maybe the move is getting slightly harder, and then 0 reps in reserve would be like you literally have no more. Maybe you even did the move and then you tried a second one or last one and it failed. So that last rep you did was 0 reps in reserve because it was your last rep. So you're training hard. Now with that, you can set up a scheme in many different ways. Different people respond differently at different times. How many times can you say different? So, some people maybe at a slightly lower intensity, maybe they're working on their strength and they're really responding well to like 3 reps in reserve or 4 reps in reserve, right? And then sometimes some people, really like to go to failure more often, and maybe they're still making progress doing that. Some people, like me, I like to kind of program a gradually increasing challenge of reps in reserve, through like the block. So if maybe you're doing like one, maybe 4 week, 5 weeks, 6 weeks or so, and you're gradually each week kind of decreasing the reps in reserve. So maybe you start at like 3 to 4, then go to 2 to 3, 1 to 2, and then maybe the last week you're going to like 0 to 1 or something. So you're really, really pushing it. And then you can do what's called a deload to kind of just let everything settle down, let the fatigue kind of chill out, and then you can restart the following week. So as long as you're training hard, and that kind of goes hand in hand with overload principle, as long as you're kind of training hard and kind of monitoring that intensity, then you're most likely going to be making progress, right? And again, if you're not seeing progress, over several weeks on maybe a certain exercise or something, and then that's when maybe you switch it up, switch to find a different variation, or maybe you kind of examine, how's your life going right now? Like other parts of your life you can adjust. So another principle that's very important is specificity. So you're training the thing that you want to be better. So if you want to get better at squats, you're doing squats, right? and you're doing it somewhat frequently. You know, maybe you're doing it twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week. You know, like everyone's going to have kind of a different you know, level of frequency that they'll respond well to, but you're actually training and practicing the thing. You know, a lot of times people, you know, might be a good idea is like, say that your squat, you want to get your squat better at a certain rep range ish. You know, you might do squat, and then you might have something that's like a squat, like a pause squat or some sort of tempo squat or a front squat, like something that's somewhat different, so you're not just doing the same move, you know, several times a week. You're kind of pushing a slightly different move, so working on a slightly different skill that most likely will transfer over to the one you're trying to build up. So, you know, if you want to build up your biceps, you need to be doing, you know, some sort of pulling work, and you need to be doing some, you know, bicep work, right? You know, you need to be specific, and you need to challenge it reasonably frequently. You know, oftentimes just once a week is not enough. Is it twice a week better? Is 3 times a week better? Is 4 times a week better? Well, that's just something you kind of have to learn for yourself. And then, you know, maybe for a short period of time, you're working on 3 to 4 times a week. And then maybe on other times you're working, you know, you're doing pretty well progressing with twice a week. So different variations there, but you need to be practicing the thing you want to get better reasonably frequently. And then some other, you know, things that are kind of related to the recovery part. You know, you're getting reasonable amount of sleep, you're eating, you know, eating enough, you know, nutrients. You know, muscles need energy, you know, they need energy to rebuild. So you're actually eating. You know, it is pretty hard to build muscle when you're in a deficit. So if you're trying to cut weight, it's kind of hard to build muscle. Your main goal when you're doing that is just to like preserve any muscle, because you just don't want to lose it. But you know, when you're adding more calories, maybe you're kind of, you know, doing a reverse diet and maintenance, or maybe you're doing a bulking, you know, that's where you can really get probably more muscle growth, because you're actually eating, you're feeding that body. And then you're trying to minimize the stress of life. Obviously, stress is probably unavoidable for most people, but you're just doing the best you can. You're doing the best you can to manage your life stress. Try to relax, you know, as much as you can to allow your body to, you know, recover and heal, you know, most optimal way it can. You know, these are those lifestyle factors. And then, you know, relaxation and stress management is going to be vastly different for a lot of people. Some people, that's, you know, for them, going and exercising is their stress management, right? You know, so that might work out, right? Some people, it's just watching Netflix, maybe it's reading or gardening or going on a walk, you know, whatever it may be. You know, find what works best for you and give yourself ample time of that. Because if you think of like optimal situation, right? Say that you were paid to just train, you know, like an athlete, right? You're paid to train and that's it, right? You would be eating, you know, good amount of food and nutrients, right? You know, for whatever goal you had. You would be getting plenty of sleep. You'd be relaxing pretty much all the time outside of your training, right? Which would mean would be pretty low stress, you know, like most likely. And then you'd be training hard and progressing over time and working reasonably frequently on the skills that you're actually trying to build up. So those are kind of the top principles for making progress. You know, there are probably other little minor things, but really if you focus on these things, you're going to get majority of the gain. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Again, I'm Nick Markey of Beach Barbell. Peace.